Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with my good friend and industry peer, David Swider. David is an industry advisor at Innate Incorporated out of Arizona and also helps construction companies visualize, estimate, manage, and control all aspects of their capital maintenance projects. So David has a great knowledge in sales management, project management, and also lead generation. Today, we're going to talk about a business practice termed as the collaborative approach and how it's changing how vendors, contractors, subcontractors, and customers approach their building projects. David's going to break down how transparency, data, workflow, and KPI tracking work together to drive collaboration. Hello, David, and thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. Good to catch up. It's been a while. COVID, we don't get to see each other at the shows as often as we used to. So really happy to be here today.
Yeah, I love that. And every time I see David at an event, I got to give him a big bro hug. So it's been too long. So getting back to the topic of conversation today. So what exactly is the collaborative approach that I was referencing?
Mike, it's funny you should say that, right? With as much as you and I have been through over the last several years, in search engine optimizations, you're seeing the word collaboration. It shows up at every list, right? Version of the truth, collaboration. It's become a catchphrase. At Innate, the foundation of our business has always been trying to tie together the scope, schedule, and actuals, right? That's the collaboration we feel is what everybody's looking for and what all the clients are looking for, is tying together that and the ability, more so than just tying together the scope, schedule, and actuals, is getting that information in the hands of the folks who need it when they need it. And what that does is, for companies who are just saying, hey, do I jump into a technology? What do I do? It kind of forces organizations to think strategically, both while they're planning their work and then also kind of as they're progressing their work, right? So in my mind, it's not only across the players involved, but also across the tools that they already have in their landscape. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, what are you saying in the market?
Yeah, I think collaboration is a key term that everybody uses, and I think some companies are pretty good at it, and some maybe aren't so much. But I know with API integration, we're seeing a lot more product to product collaboration, which I think is more the key that we're all looking for from a technology provider. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would, right? I mean, and I also am always reticent, and it'll probably come up further in our discussion of the API too, right? I mean, a lot of folks it was like BIM was 10 years ago, right? Oh, it's BIM. You got a BIM? Like a buzzword. 6-pack of BIM? Yeah, it was a buzzword, right? So I have this magic API, and sales guys or vendors tend to have that magic API that gets them right where they're going, right? So, but you're absolutely right. We definitely see that, right? I agree with you on that.
So how do contractors make more space to allow for better or more collaboration?
In my experience, and again, we'll hit that a little bit at the end, but the good contractors don't really need to make space for collaborations because they've already, in mind, have already started that collaborative journey as they're being awarded or even prior to being awarded that work, right? Unfortunately, what happens is sometimes the collaboration is forced because the contractor's driving it, but they're not engaging the owners, the architects, the engineers, the CMs, the facility managers, the fabricators in that collaboration, right? It always tends to be maybe a contractor to a sub, or they're not truly bringing in all of the workflows that need to be there, right? So making that space kind of happens. And in Innate, we've identified about 200 project workflows in a typical capital projects. Now, we've built our platform and have those workflows built out to about 175 of those. But what it does is, by building those out, it helps us identifying the who, Identifying the who, that sounds like a Dr. Seuss, right? You hit him on that podcast, right? Identifying the who. But in terms of collaboration, it identifies the who needs to be in that collaboration, as well as what tools need to be in that collaboration. So a collaborative approach is what we really find that our clients are looking to us for, and you as well, right? Is to give them some of that predictability, give them that outcome certainty that they're looking for. And the only way they're ever going to get there is if they're collaborating at some form, right? What are your clients saying there?
Yeah, one of the things that we see, and a phrase that we like to coin and that we hear out there, is live field data. That real time visibility and ability to share with cloud-based technologies and opportunity to share different data sets for different roles, different people within the organization. Having that real time access is a critical piece to allow that type of collaboration to even occur.
Yeah, it really is, right? And I mean, when we look at it, there's a lot of logos out there, right? So I mean, I don't envy our listeners, right? How do they know? How do they sift through it? I mean, every other day. I mean, even in our industry, I'm getting my own, things to look at. So it becomes a tough one, right? But it definitely is. How do you get that real time data? How do you get those analytics? How do you get those KPIs that really give you the health of your project? That's what all of, in my humble opinion, over 30 years, that's what all of us should be striving to do with our clients, is help them find that equilibrium in their project to get that visibility.
Yeah, completely agree. So when we talk about modular technology, what is that exactly, and why do you think that's maybe on the rise today?
Well, again, when we're talking about modular technology, that's a tricky question, right? Because I'll go back to what I said before. We typically think AEC and not the O, right? And it's often the contractors who are driving the tool selection, as we know, right? The contractor drives it. And I can never understand that. And maybe that's another podcast for us down the road, right, Mike? Mm-hmm. Is I don't understand how owners aren't really doing more of the dictating of what tools are in play. Ultimately, right, they're paying the bill. I get that the contractor may say, hey, it's going to cost more if I have to use a tool, or it's going to take. But at the end of the day, they both want the same visibility, right? So, but what happens is, to your point earlier, the AECO companies are bombarded with these companies offering that magic API, right? The discussion. It's our tool has an API that can connect to your solution, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 CIOs later and a boatload of professional services money, you've now become, instead of a construction company, you're now a technology company, right? So it becomes very, very difficult to manage that integration landscape. And again, I'm sure, any of our listeners would be familiar to that concern. And don't get me wrong, to integrate is great. But what value is it if you're integrating a platform of connection points whose connection points don't solve your problem, right? If and you should, for that benefit, pay a percentage of revenue to have just a bunch of connected points, but don't solve the workflow. I don't know that that's what my clients are asking for, what I'm seeing. Candidly, I think, we get a bad rap, right, Mike? You and I, and again, I'll stop here. But we get a bad rap in construction for saying we don't have great tools, or we don't have technology. Or if I go to one more meeting, where they say, oh, the landscape and construction technology is brutal or the worst, it's really not. What we don't have is we don't have integrated technologies. We have plenty of great technologies. We just don't have integrated technologies, in my humble opinion, right? I don't see that in acquisition. Just because everybody's wearing the same logo doesn't mean they're any better integrated.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, and this is going way back. I can think of 15 years ago, we had a customer in Texas, a smaller organization. They were utilizing our mobile technology to collect field data. And their owner was so impressed with the reports he was now getting, because we had this live field data being collected, that he mandated that the other 4 contractors that were also working on that project also standardize on our platform. And he actually helped pay for and subsidize the cost of some of that system for each of those companies, because the value that they would receive by having that real-time daily reporting that they'd never seen before, because of these Excel-based or spreadsheet-based or paper-based systems.
And that, again, that makes sense, right? You can see where it is, because, again, who wants to show up in a work in progress or a WIP meeting in a trailer every Monday knowing it's going to be an onerous meeting because they're either not on the same page, someone's telling a fib, or maybe stretching where things are, or They don't even know where they are. They're looking at a report that's this thick. How can you find something week over week? And then how good is that data you're bringing in if you're ushering it in that way, right? So that's why we feel that the industry needs to be in that collaborative mindset of truly bringing a modular solution to play. Doesn't matter what the logo is. Yes, we love them always to say your logo, my logo, but it's the right tool that gets the information is the company, I think, that wins the game with the owners and the contractors at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think with GCs, are you seeing that because of the technologies they're standardizing on and maybe the tools that they're requiring, are they selecting certain subcontractors because they're more proficient with those tools?
You do. And there's two things that I see. And again, I'll dovetail back. I mean, I go back to when technology, I'm an old guy, right? I know I don't appear it in this great video.
You don't.
But I go back when the big technology was if you'd have a mailbox with a light on it, and if a job had your trade on it, that light would light up, and that would send you the notice that there was a job that needed your trade. That's how far back I go back to when they take the plans, and the big thing was you could blow them up on a grease pencil on a light box and do grease pencil takeoffs. The big thing after that was they threw a Jatico digitizer that would do the measuring. Then it was we never put plans and specs online, right? So to your question of does a GC pick subs because of that, I was at a trade show. Actually, I was at the World of Concrete when COVID, broke out however long ago it was. And I was walking behind two younger college graduates and the kids were laughing to each other saying, could you believe that the contractor wanted me to walk out with a clipboard as opposed to a tablet? Right. Now, I was mortified. Right. So when he said that, then you start to think, what tools are they? Are they really selecting it? And now what it does is it brings to bear two problems you bring up with that question, Mike, is the subcontractors have to be prepared with technology, and the GCs have to have good technology if they want to attract the talent, not only of the subs, but even the talent on their own teams. Right. We've got a little bit of a generational thing going on where you've got to have a little bit of best of both breeds in order to truly be functional there. And of course, the GCs want to do it because that leads into the more information that they're getting back, or the more accurate, or the more data points they get back, the better off they're going to know where they are, the better off they can manage that relationship with the owner.
Yeah, great points. So when we have these types of tools, are you seeing that on occasion, or in some instances, because they've got these technology tools, that maybe they can even bridge that experience gap where maybe somebody who doesn't really know, hasn't been around the block a bunch of times, might still be effective in the role because they have that data and they can simply react to it?
Yeah, again, it touches on the amount of gray hair I have, right? So as we now say, the more seasoned experienced folks, right? As opposed to me, I just call it, being an old guy, right? I wrote an article about, I called it 35 years between the years, right? And while the more seasoned leaders have that experience, right, the technology doesn't push them aside. I hear it in a lot of companies, right? You'll get a lot of the Willie Bidlows, right? Will he bid low, folded arms, and not going to go ahead and talk this technology, right? Because you're asking him to go against generational amounts of gut feel and money that they've made before either you or I walk on their site to say, hey, we've got a better way. You're fighting that, right? People always ask, who's our competitor? Our competitor is that gut feel, is that instinct that contractor thinks they know what they know, right? And candidly, the seasoned professional has even more to gain from tools like yours and mine, because now instead of doing all the manual key press and the finding versions and looking through spreadsheets and pulling it off of servers to find documents, they now have it at their hands, so they can really take the steps of really concentrating on what they have learned in those 35 years, which is how to do the work at the best, at the lowest possible cost and retain, the highest possible margin, right? So, and in our industry, let's face it, everybody's looking to reduce that risk, right? AI can provide, instances and, dependencies, but the seasoned professional have that benefit of learned experience as well. So it's not so much the A or the artificial, it's more of the intelligence. So they can leverage both data points now, and it makes that seasoned professional even more. But where that has, and I don't want to, just get up on a podium here, but where it really helps for folks who are thinking about, do they jump that digital divide, is now you are also closing that gap. You're closing that generational gap, because now the less seasoned professional right, can go ahead and learn from that benchmark, that
Yes.
AI, learn from that boots in the field experience, so that now when Susan retires to Bora Bora, you can wish her well because all of Susan's knowledge is now captured in tools like yours and mine, where you can leverage benchmarks and find best practices and find years of experience and tribal knowledge that now you retain. It's your business, right? That's our companies that we deal with. That's their intellectual property. They shouldn't lose it because somebody retires. So I find that once we get through these discussions, the more seasoned professionals become even more of an asset, and it helps bring up the next generation a little bit quicker.
So speaking of that, what I'm hearing you say is it's not only the what, but the why. And the why is something that seasoned professionals just have that wealth of knowledge and can plug into that technology and make that tool even more efficient than someone who doesn't know why, right?
It really is, right? And then if you have that, think of what else you get. As somebody who might not know the answer to that why, now you have that data inference in your hands. So why? Well, you can take out the anomalies. Well, why do we think these crews get 40 welds an hour when everything we say show they get 20 welds an hour? Well, then why build the next estimate out that says 40 welds an hour? Because as soon as you flip it over, your guys in the field are 20 welds short an hour. Now they're playing that game. So you're already kicking somebody out of the blocks in a bad way. So that's why we think, again, a collaborative platform allows us to set scope early, identify those markers, track the progress against those, and truly give visibility to all the players. It's not a secret. I mean, can't really say it's not a secret sauce, but it's mathematics and it's visibility and transparency that, again, I think the companies that are succeeding now are providing to their customers.
Yeah, I love that. And with the tools of today, why not? Why wouldn't you?
If you can make it easy, right? Again, I'm not saying because again, AI and that kind of stuff, it still gets that, oh, hocus pocus, right? How are you going to predict this? My job isn't the same. No two jobs are the same. No, understanding that, but getting data inference points and production rates and actual numbers. I mean, how many times have we heard the on the job and the trailer door busts open and we've got a work stoppage or a site condition that needs an answer, right? We've got everybody standing around on a shovel. And if you're not armed with some data, you're going to make a decision. That PM or that project engineer is going to make a decision. Again, maybe based a lot on gut feel, right? And maybe something that saves schedule and maybe a little bit of budget right then and there. But now all of a sudden, fast forward to 6 months from now, when we're revisiting that area where that incident happened and we just put a fix in. And now let's say that fix causes a problem for what we're doing near that fix. Now what have we done? So now that error you have because you didn't have a collaborative platform, you didn't have the data that you needed, now gets compounded and keeps hitting you in the head with a hammer because it will continue to come back and haunt you throughout that job. So if you have things where you can say, hey, I can remove some of this risk. I know this happened on our last one. Let's be aware of that, whether it's safety, whether it's, collision clash, whatever it might be, having that information up front is, again, where things really sit to make somebody a productive company to be able to transfer that data back and forth.
Love that. So that's a really nice segue into the next thing I wanted to bring up. And it's a term I've heard you use at Innate and before that for well over a decade, the term real-time earned value as a KPI. What does that mean and what components make up that term?
And Mike, and that's the very key to all of it, right? So one of the things that Kiewit does very, very well is earned value and does visibility, right? And what earned value is, I think if we take a step and talk about the importance of earned value, it would be good to start with what is earned value for some of our folks who may not track it as often or why it's important to have, right? So first, you need a budget at completion, right? So how much work should be done by the end of the project for a given set of activities, right? So that's the first part. You need a budget at completion in order to get to earned value. Now, to illustrate, let's say we're doing, let's say we're doing 500 foot of pipe, and we've estimated that this is going to be $20 a foot. The budget at completion then obviously is $100,000. So far, so good. I know I'm an old guy, but my math's still holding out.
You got it.
So now we're coming up to earned value. So now the next thing we have to add is the actual cost, right? How much has the work we completed cost us to this point of progress, right? So there is no equation for this. It doesn't depend on how much work was done, but it's actually the actual dollars spent. So in our example, let's assume the actual cost right now is $55,000. Okay, so the earned value will tell us how much in dollars or workforce hours, right, should I have spent to achieve this much progress?
Right.
Is that still
Yep.
with me? So
Mhm.
so the formula becomes very simple. Earned value is the physical percent complete times the budget at completion. Right. So now I'm getting to answer your question, right? I just taken us back just a step to make sure everybody, that we're tracking on earned value. So using our example, let's say we've installed instead of 500, let's just say we've installed 300 foot of pipe. Well, here's earned value on that, right? So if earned value is the percent of complete times the budget at completion, we now would say 300 feet divided by 500 feet times the budget at completion. So that would mean 300 feet divided by 500 feet is 60%. 60% of 100,000 would be 60 grand. Now, in this example, let's say we spent 55,000. So if we said today, here's where we are, this is what we've earned, we've now earned $5,000 more than could have been. Right now, again, in our company, we take it a step further. We do how much have you spent? So it's not only how much have you earned. If you tie earned value to schedule, now you're saying how much have I spent? Now, I bring you down that whole path to answer your question. Earned value is critical, and why tools like ours are in need is because how could you possibly look an owner, a contractor, or somebody in the face and say, here's what percent complete I am, or here's what I've earned so far, if you don't have access to that information.
Right.
If you're not getting data of where are we today, I mean, heck, if you're waiting for it to come out of your accounting system at the end of a week or 2 weeks, and the guys will laugh, they'll say 2 weeks, we'd be lucky. You're looking in the rearview mirror. You can't make up the budget or the schedule for that time that's passed, and that date is old. So now how far are you really behind, right? And that's where I think we start seeing the rub a little bit. So that's where we look at some of the front end of it, right? Is earned value is critical in our opinion of, transparency and project certainty, is knowing where you really are in a job.
So especially in a market like this, where most places are so behind and so booked out and so busy that before they even get an opportunity to really analyze the last job, they're 3 more jobs deep, right?
It happens, right? They're blowing and going. If they don't have longer jobs, shorter tail jobs, that happens. But, a lot of times we get asked, well, does somebody lose? Do you ever see that folks lose perspective of that? Right. And I'm not sure I've ever heard of somebody losing financial perspective on a job since I was a kid growing up with my dad, and he's knocking my Cheerios and Legos off the table and laying out blueprints. I knew full right well how well we were doing on that job, or we weren't. Right. So there's no shortage of folks who will get in somebody's backside about you're not hitting the budget or the financial aspirations of this project. But again, it's like the quote says, Mike, it's not what you know, it's what you think you know that ain't so that gets you in trouble. Right now, that was attributed to Twain, and I did a whole thing for another podcast on it. But that's what gets a lot of our folks in trouble is, I think we're 30% complete. Based on what? By your man hours alone? Because if you don't have quantities put in place, are you really that percent complete?
Right.
So, I mean, those are the things that tools like ours or companies like ours seek to do with our clients. And as I'm sure WorkMax is helping your clients, right?
Yeah, for sure. So when you have that kind of data and you're utilizing those KPIs in real time earned value, how can that positively impact the confidence in the project, not just for the builder and the subcontractors, but the owner?
Well, that's a real good one, right? And again, I don't want to lean on keyword exposure too much, but I will say, because what it does is it brings both the visibility and the transparency, and truly provides what we hear as the buzzword, that real version of the truth. Mm-hmm. Having that knowledge of what it is makes those meetings way less tenable, right? And that's one of the things, you've got to look at companies that do things really, really well, right? And Kiewit being in the top tier, they know where their nickels and dimes are, right? They know that. Their teams know what should be accomplished shift over shift and what their vendors and their contractors should see. Now, is that always easy to identify? No, it's not, right? Do all the jobs go off ahead of budget and ahead of schedule? No, I'm sure they wish more of them would, right? But you starting with an honest level of where are we you can then truly attack the problems. Not if you went out to our clients and yours, I mean our collective clients, and you were to ask, how many times did you ask, where'd you get that number? Or, hey, how many times did you, we won money until 90 days from now, to your point before about you're blowing and going on 3 other jobs, and hopefully you're not paying Peter to pay Paul on a job you're upside down on, right? By taking 2 more to pay off the one that you're short on. How many of those stories do you and I hear, Mike, at the shows where guys say, hey, yeah, we thought we were doing good until, well, all 90 days later, when all the invoicing process, when all the change orders got through, when everything came, all of a sudden we're not up, we're upside down. So that's what good companies do well, is they're able to see that and have that transparency. And that's how earned value positively affects project confidence, because everybody's dancing from the same hymnal or reading from the same hymnal, right? We're all looking at the same data. It's not subjective, right? It's objective. This is the man, right? And that's what I'm saying. And that's how we're building clients that sometimes compete. Hey, they joint venture just the same on the next job, right? So what they're all still looking for, though, is the same visibility, transparency, data collaboration. Doesn't matter whose tools. If they have that, then it's a happier job or a better job, a more communicative job, makes it so there's less angst and difficulty going through. And again, let's face it, it's a tough industry.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing that we have when those JVs happen and they're utilizing a tool that gives them that real-time earned value, that gives them that live field data. Immediately, they are telling the JV partner, hey, you got to get on this technology also, because we're not going to run our dollars through your old clunky system or your manual collection tools. We gotta track all the money the same, right?
It really is, right? And I mean, again, I'm thankful for the growth of your tools. I mean, our tools, I think we're doing it. I mean, if you Baskin Robbins, right? So vanilla, chocolate, but let's just be in the store, right? Let's be in the ice cream store of helping that capital project use the tools that they need, the ones that fit the right fit, and then give them that visibility for that project success.
Yeah, that's great. So are there some modern solutions or tools that take away from this real-time earned value accuracy?
If I'm really looking at it, they're not too hard to find, right? When you see them, right? Because you'll know as a contractor, you're going to know when you don't know, right? You're going to know, hey, I don't know where the crew is, or hey, I woke up this morning, I got to change the schedule. Do I have crew to cover that, right? Or my tools that I have, I'm still waiting on, right? So it becomes, who are you waiting on? We have a lot in just our document controls module within our own tool where we're tracking what RFPs, whose ball in court is it? I saw, with yours as well, right? You've got a whole list of what ball in court, where is it? What items are left? What are we ticking off, right? Same thing here. Those, without that kind of knowledge, unfortunately, if you're a sub, it's not, hey, I'm going to get on those tools or I'm going to get left. You're already behind, right? If you are that non-tool, right? Or I guess you are a tool, but you are that non-tool in that collaborative space. If you're not able to get your information in and out, I mean, even if it's as bad as import export, at least being able to get the data where it needs to go. We call that the data bus, right? Connecting, doesn't matter what you need in your landscape. And I think that even tips it off a little bit more. And I don't want to, digress too far here, but that's also what a collective, we started out the call on, a collective platform does for you, right? Is it doesn't seek to take out money that you've already invested, good or bad, in a tool that may be working for you, right? What it does is it says, how do I get the data, even if it is, my sub who might be great. I mean, let's face it, they're subs because they know their trade. It came down from family. They should be proud, right? Because they don't know your or my tool shouldn't have an impact. However, we have to help them. So our tools have to help the ones that are not able to do it, so that we can get the data that we need to help them, bring along. So I'm finding a lot of ours are looking more toward that. And the ones who are definitely, I'm not going to do it, I think they're going to see a tough road to hoe, to be candid, right? I mean, there's not any real sizzle there, right? Doesn't mean that anybody has to get rid of it, but the companies that should earn a company's business, a client's business, are the ones who just kind of go back to, listening, right? I can't tell you how many times, Mike, I hear, vendors say, oh, well, what keeps you up at night? As a client advisor for my clients, if I'm asking that company, I'm what's keeping them up at night, because I should already know what's keeping them up at night, right? I should already have an idea or an understanding of where they're going to find those blind spots. And at the very least, what I am going to do, as opposed to just delivering a platform with connected endpoints and say, look, we connected one more, I'm going to do a little bit more of a listening, right? I'm going to take that listening approach and say, to your point, you called it the whys, right? Why is it keeping you up? I know what's keeping you up, but why is it? Is it because you don't have the tools here? Is it because you're getting stuck here? Right. And that goes back to your, again, great questions you're asking, Mike, because that goes back up to your KPIs thing, right? EVP, your earned value. What are you measuring? I can tell you what's keeping you up at night. Let me look at a handful of what we're measuring. And I'll tell you right then and there, I can help you identify where you're having blind spots. And I'm not saying take out the technology. I'm just going to show you where it is. And let's figure out why you can't get to that number. And let's just start there. For me, it's incremental changes. It's not a rip and replace. And I got to throw a whole big platform and a collaboration at you. No, let's start with, where are you getting beat, right? Why are you getting that? And then once you have those answers, as a good, vendor, or as a good partner, and in my case, as an advisor, what I do is I look at my clients and I listen to what they're saying and say, hey, this is what I see. And now let's look at what's in your landscape. Let's figure out who the people are that are involved with the why, and let's figure out the products that are involved with the why, and then solve it.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking as you're speaking, sometimes they have some of the right tools. Maybe they just need one other bolt, or maybe they need to swap one for four. Maybe they got four things that are underutilized, that don't integrate, that aren't working and collaborating, and they could replace that with one that does, and it may bring everything together. So like you said, it's not necessarily rip and replace. In a lot of cases, it's more, let's assess what we already have in the toolbox and see how we can more effectively utilize those, and then get even so that we can get better.
That's where it really, where rubber really does meet the road in my opinion, when we see it, right? It's not about more technology. It's just about the right technology, connecting the technology that is working for you. And again, being able to leverage that for your project outcomes.
Love it. Well, so let's shift gears just a little bit. And I just wanted to ask you more of a personal question, if that's okay. So what's something that you're grateful for in your professional life? Is there one thing that you really just are so thankful for?
Wow, that's a good one. I started to say, from how far back I've come, right? If I look at my career over the years, it's spanned. It's always been in our industry, number one. So I don't know a lot of folks who've had it, but from 1989 to here, I've been on the construction technology side, some family involved, but on the construction technology side for all of these years. And I've eaten a fair amount of rubber chicken and shoe leather steaks at industry events, right? But the value of that is what I've been able to learn at those meetings from those industry best practitioners along the way over 20 years. And again, fortunate to be aligned with our parent, Kiewit, who brings a tremendous amount of visibility and breadth of knowledge and experience. What that's helped me with is it's almost like an ongoing doctoral education for me, right? I'm always being accelerated to the next level because I'm surrounded by, if I'm grateful, I'm surrounded in my entire professional life to have been around people who are smarter than I am, who know the industry better than I do, who've allowed me to come and experience, their bid days and their job sites and walk on and see the problems. I couldn't ask for it. I couldn't speak the way I do or have the knowledge I have if I didn't have those people around me throughout my career. So if I'm thinking about being grateful, I'd say it's for having the level of, really, really bright people, experienced people in our industry taking me along the way for the journey.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. I can relate to that as well. So what's David Swider's superpower?
Oh, geez. Superpower. I wasn't going for that. Maybe dovetailing off of the last one is maybe I'd say I'm a dynamite. If you have to be super, you got to put an inflexive in there. Diagnostician. I don't even know if that's a word. That's a Jersey word, maybe.
Works for me.
but what it is over those 30 years, what it has done, Mike, is, and for you as well, right? And I'm not saying that many years, but is it lets us see what the good companies do really well and what the poor companies do maybe not as well, right? And now, because I've had the experience, it enables me to go ahead and reach out to those prospective clients, where I can really just simply sit down and drive the questions, right? It's still old school for me. As many tools that are out there in the LinkedIn's and all of that, for me, it's still the same good old listening, right? Why is that thing keeping you up? Why are you not seeing what you need for that KPI? Why are your jobs not landing ahead of schedule or on schedule and on budget? And I can ask it without intent, right? A lot of times you get now, especially because everybody's got a solution that everybody can sell.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to ask that question knowing, but here's how I can solve it, right? But here's what I can do to help you.
It's a loaded question.
I get to come back as a diagnostic guy and be able to do a little bit more of that. Well, here's what I'm hearing you tell me. Here's what I'm seeing in your workflow. I know these are the real workflows because I've been doing it for 30 years. So I don't have to worry about whose logo, right? Oh, well, we're using your competitor. Hey, great. Good for you, right? Let's go ahead and see now, is your competitor able to get the data into this part of your business that's suffering right now? If it's not, let's figure that out, right? What can we do to fix that? To your point, modular solution, someone who can listen and advocate for the client solution, not just for, I'm looking to rip and replace and throw a whole new platform and ask you for a percent of revenue. Right? That's not, I think, what's led to my sustainability over 30 years in this industry. And I'm sure to be the last one with anybody who's listening, they'll never want to see me again at a show. But that's just the passion, that has, and you get that. So I guess a superpower would be a dynamite diagnostician. I'm going to have to write that down. Maybe John can check and see if that's really even an English word.
Put that on the business card, right?
It's a Swiderism. See if I get that trending. So,
Love it.
But what do you think, Mike? Well, wait, tell me what's yours. Now, wait, I gave you mine, but other than being able to do a Jean-Claude Van Damme completely vertical split from a vertical stance up 3 feet off the ground, what's your superpower?
I can do that, but that's probably not I hope that's not the best thing I've got to offer planet Earth or the industry. I would say I just care. I really do want to help and make an impact, help others to find improvement and progress. And, I think that served me well for, like you, almost 30 years now of construction experience. And I think that's what contractors are. We're builders. We want to build something. We want to do something that's impactful and that's long-standing and that's firm. That's going to withstand, the weather and the storm, so to speak. So I think for me, I just care about what I'm putting my time and effort and my passion into. Very much like you, I think.
Yeah, I think it is, right? So hopefully we both can enjoy, continued success down the path.
Yeah, I love that. So very last thing, if there's one takeaway from our conversation today, what would you have the listeners part with?
Well, Mike, let me, again, thank you for having me on. I know I'm a little windy. I appreciate it. I talk fast, but, everybody else just listens slow. But is simply having a collaborative platform doesn't get you there, right? The companies that should earn our listeners' trust are the ones who really do listen, right? Who do really seek, to your point, help somebody else succeed, help the industry, get there. It's not sizzle, it's not flashy, but it truly is, the purest form of serving the client, so that they shouldn't have to worry about what keeps them up at night, right? They shouldn't have to need to worry about that because they know they've got the tools in place that will help them tomorrow, no matter what obstacle. Let's face it, it's going to come tomorrow. They're going to get it. It's not going to be what it was when they went to bed at night. So, being able to know that they can handle it because they have the right environment, that's the takeaway, right? Partner with somebody who can bring that level of education or that level of servitude, I think would be more of what I would tell guys to do and ladies, not just, let's pick out a platform for the sake of everybody else is on that platform, or let's pick out tools because we need the tool. Seek to understand that workflow and where those areas for increased efficiency are, and then plug the hole with that. You may find, like you said, you're taking away 4 tools that you don't need, or you may just be adding one that maybe boosts everybody, right? So all the tools in your landscape. So that would be what I'd say. It's old school, 50 years ago. Goes back to just the root, build a relationship by listening and not listening with intent, just listening to understand what they're saying, not with the intention to sell something.
Well said. Well, thank you. I very much enjoyed the conversation today, David. Loved having you on.
Hey, Mike, thank you. I look forward to doing it again sometime.
Yeah, sounds great. And thank you to the listeners for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast. We had a great conversation today, David and I had a lot of fun. I hope you gained some insightful knowledge and some nuggets that you can take and apply into your business life as well. If you enjoyed the conversation, please give us a 5-star rating and review. We'd love to hear your comments and feedback on the podcast. And most importantly, please share this with your friends and colleagues in the industry. Like you heard David and I both say, we very much care about and have a lot of passion for helping others and other companies, our customers, prospects, and friends in the industry. And so please, again, share this with your colleagues so that we can not only help you all improve your business, but your life.